Hi, everybody. It's Steve Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Oracle of the Self. This is coaching session number 34. And to get things going today, I wanted to bring you guys up to date on where we are with the Oracle of the Self as we'd originally intended it. And so basically what I want to do is just show you how some things are changing, and then hopefully get a lot of good input from you so that I make this as valuable an experience for everyone as I possibly can. So ultimately, everything that we do on YouTube, everything we do, period, our goal is to get people to join our community. And so to join our community, they would pretty much receive a direct link to a page you can also get to by going to changeworksystem.com, and under our community, you'll see become a member, and you can click there. But we thought for most of our YouTube videos, things like that, we would just give people a link directly to this page. So join our community. And under the Explorer is free for life. And that's where we're going to be talking about today. What are these explorations of the week all about? And this is where I need your input. What are those topics going to be? Because honestly, I'd like to launch this on October 1st, or the first, we have to figure out what day of the week it is, but at the very beginning of October, I'd like to release this. So people just click down here. By the way, I would request that all of you guys do that. Click on that link to join the ChangeWorks community as an explorer, free for life. Let me give you guys a link to that in the conversation we're having. So to everyone, here you go. But if you'll do that, because I think the easiest way for us to communicate with people is going to be by using the membership system, because you can have like a feed where people are receiving messages, they receive pieces of updates, input, all that good sort of stuff. So I want to kind of get everybody involved in using that. So just click on the Export for Life. If you want to look at that one, you can feel free to do that as well. But the goal is to make sure that everyone is up for this little free for life thing. Someone also suggested that if we have like a low cost one, it might very well be that people find enough value and explore that they're willing to become a supporter. It's basically the same thing, but they're giving us a little bit of money to offset the costs of providing this. Practitioner and master practitioner, these are the more advanced student sorts of things where you really are learning it. I promise you guys, after being on 34 hours of training with us, you have covered pretty much all the material and then some that's involved in practitioner. But practitioner is structured. You know how often I've said, we're talking about this, but you would have learned this in the first 10 minutes of training, but we didn't do things that way. So there is some stuff that would go over there. But just want you to kind of know that the real subject I want to go over today is, what are these explorations of the week? So let me sign that out of the way. Recently, I've been talking to the Circle of Brilliance about using the Wheel of Life as like the foundation for what these explorations of the week are all about. And so we said, well, if we took each of these different life areas and we put together an activity list for each one of these life areas, then people could go ahead and fill out the little profile. They can come to the debriefs, and although we can't talk about probably every activity on every call, over the course of time, they're going to learn enough about what the grids are telling them that they can kind of, fill in the blanks, whatever we don't cover in the live sorts of calls. And so the question then came, oh, by the way, those of you who have not done a Wheel of Life before, I don't know, Anja, if you've had an opportunity to do one, but basically, it's a goal-setting tool where you look at all these different life areas that you have. This particular wheel has 12 life areas, but you'll find others available online that have got a half a dozen or 8 or whatever, number they decided would work for them. Ours happens to have 12. Mind you, this goes back to 1997. And so this is something that we worked on with Mark Chekai, who had a program that he called Life Setting, and we wanted to make it part of our team builder suite of programs we were doing at the time. Boy, that's a long time ago. And so how you do it is you would look at each one of these life areas and you would ask yourself, to what degree do I feel like that life area is satisfied for me? How satisfied am I with where I am when it comes to each of these life areas? So Edie, you go right ahead. You're unmuted. So you go right ahead and share whatever you'd like. Oh, nope, she's disappeared.
Oh,
Anytime.
I'm here, but
There you are.
I'm good.
Okay. And so we decided to turn into a little bit fun because it's like this wheel sort of thing. So we said, all right, when you look at each one of these areas like health and fitness, how satisfied are you 0 to 10 when it comes to your health and fitness? Where you at in life? And so you would circle that number and you work your way around all the different subjects and you keep circling the numbers and circling the numbers. And then what you do is you take a little ruler or whatever and you connect all of your circles together, and you end up with kind of like a deformed sort of circle. And then the question becomes for the student, will your wheel roll? If your wheel won't roll, it's because these life areas are out of balance. And you need to make sure, even if, don't try to be a 10 on all of them unless that's what you aspire to be. But if you're going to reach 6 on one, can you reach 6 on all of them so things stay in balance? That's the whole point of the wheel kind of configuration. Well, as time went on and we do what we do with the circle of brilliance and the merging of brilliance, we said, a human life is not a wheel. A human life is a full vehicle. It's got at least 4 different wheels. There's a lot of different things that we should be looking at to determine how satisfied we are. Maybe they are additional life areas. Maybe they're things that fall into these life areas. And we make the joke that some people's lives really require a whole semi truck. They need an 18-wheeler to really look at what's going on in their world. So anywho, that was this concept. So I said, all right, you know what? If I want to put out there a series of explorations of the week that will not only help our Oracle of the Self students better understand the conversations they're having with themselves about all these different life areas, but we would also, hopefully because it's on YouTube, attract a growing audience, let some kind of social media spread happen. Maybe it could go viral, but you know what I mean? It's be nice for it to spread. So anyone can join in on any of these explorations of the week anytime they want. And they can actually go back to all of the explorations of the week that we have finished and go ahead and fill them out for themselves. And, the system automatically sends you your results and blah, blah, blah. So you guys get the overall shape of what it is that we're trying to create, an interactive kind of engine that can bring us more people into the awareness of what we do and hopefully get them to become part of our community. Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
All
Can I
right.
make an observation?
Please do.
The Boris and I have been talking about something that we're collaborating on with the book that I'm writing, Retooling and Refueling.
Yes.
And he was talking about the core and how a lot of times people talk about the core. But I said, okay, when you talk about like this myth of work-life balance,
yeah,
the balance that people are actually wanting, I think, is integration. That's one thing. But then also what Boris said was, I think people have it backwards. It's not about work life as it is life work. Like life is the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So I think like if that circle in the center, like we do on the change grid, if people can see like what is it as a core question or something, like what do you want your life to look like, and then how all of these areas line up with that, you're focusing on integration more so than balance, because balance automatically, in my mind at least, it pits something against something else.
Exactly.
And that's not
right.
the essence of life.
Yeah. Yep. And it can leave you in a very unfortunate place if all you do is try to achieve balance instead of some sort of integration and harmony among all these different life areas. So to choose any 2 of them, because honestly, if I look around just this wheel, and by the way, this is not the activity set that we're using, although I think most of them are included. But let's say you're looking at, they want work. Which one's that? All right, they've got financial career advancement. We'll say that's the one. And it's pitted up against family or friends and social functions. There's a lot more to life than that. And just bringing those two into balance is not going to mean you have a life that's in balance. So,
Right. And
all right.
doesn't
So,
a lot of people lose themselves when they lose their job, right?
well, of
And then
course,
those
of course.
careers and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so I think, this idea that you can transfer skills and you have to be set up for, these long-term aspects of change.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the balance of conception really tricks people into thinking that you have to stave off your best life into some magical future state.
Right.
And that's
Right.
dangerous.
It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. And so let me tell you, those of you that might be interested in this Wheel of Life thing, this is some document that we have that you can have blank. You can fill in whatever you want on those different spokes. It's your life. So we try to create our tools as flexibly as possible. However, what we wanted to do is the next step is say, well, let's take this concept from 1997 and let's see if we can bring it up to speed and do whatever we can do to build a nice, robust list of things that people have as life areas. And so we ended up creating 24 different life areas in our discussion that we had. One of the things that we did was we just started to compile all the different lists we found from all the different places, and on we went. And we can spend some time looking these different life areas because there's a couple of questions about them that we're posing to the circle on tomorrow's call. But we look at things like life area number 1, physical well-being. Then 2, emotional well-being, relationships, primary relationship, career, financial security, recreation and leisure, personal growth, spiritual well-being, whatever, intellectual development, community service, and we can go all the way down the list because we want to know, are all of these really life areas as opposed to life events or perhaps situations that someone might find themselves in? And so we went down and pretty much said, no, creative expression, that's an area, having life purpose, cultural heritage, technology, that does become more and more of a life area as time goes on. So you get the idea: harmony, ethics, legacy, boundaries, openness, whatever it happens to be. Now, again, remember that our goal is twofold in creating these explorations of the week. We want to make sure that all of our Oracle of the Self students have got something to think about for that week, some life area that they're examining, and hopefully learning more about the conversations they're having with themselves about that life area, and ultimately do whatever it is that needs to be done. And again, the second goal is we'd like to attract more people so they can benefit from the insights we believe. We say the tagline of our program is "Insights so valuable, we want everyone to know." We really do believe that the more people understand about tension management, the higher quality life they're likely to have because of all the insights you get about how people are being manipulated and blah, 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 all the stuff we've talked about. So we really do want to find a way to turn this into something that's outreach. And so we spent a good deal of time fleshing out each one of these life areas and, came up with activity lists for each one of them. And then I'm looking over it. And I will say to you that as I look over this, I don't think there's enough tension in life areas that it would compel people flipping through YouTube to go like, oh, I want to look at that. Now,
Can I
maybe
ask?
the way it's phrased. But yeah, go ahead, Anja.
I don't want to knock you off course, but the thing that strikes me is number 2, emotional well-being.
Yep.
Honest to God, it seems to me that everything under that and above it as well, that is dependent upon all those things. Like
Yep.
emotional well-being is to me, like my relationships have something to do with my emotional well-being. And I learned, this is kind of what I learned when I did my very first activity list months ago.
Yep.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, and see this, we put these two first, but these are in a rather random order. We haven't really tried to figure out if there's any hierarchy in them or whatever. But I think on the circle, we were talking about the case that if you're not taking care of your physical well-being and you're not taking care of your emotional well-being, then all the rest of these things are going to be negatively impacted.
But don't you think emotional even
I
impact
think
physical?
I think in someone who is not aware of what the oracle of the self is all about, is not aware of tension management, is not aware of all these sorts of things, are very likely to let these situations impact their emotional well-being, as opposed to saying like, let's make sure that you are emotionally centered, grounded, you are fully aware, detached, all that sort of stuff. Being in that that place of well-being emotionally helps you to see all of these other life areas in a different kind of light.
I see.
Yeah, but that only holds true to build your point. That only holds true for people who have got the level of understanding that we think people would have if they went through the 33 weeks of training you guys have gone through. So I think you're right. For most people, all of these things add up to their emotional well-being. And we instead say, nah, you take care of your emotional part first. It's amazing how differently all these other things can end up being.
I
So, and
wonder if you
certainly
can
if you
do a
don't,
survey, T. If you
what's that?
can do a, I wonder if you could do a survey to see how people are experiencing that, because I agree 150% with what you just said. Because if you're emotionally hijacked, there is no reasoning capacity or enough of it to think about these other areas. And so you talk about
Mhm.
emotional
Right.
agility and fluidity, but I don't know that people understand that, because I think people don't even understand well-being. Because when I hear this from patients, like they talk about, well, the average, I say, okay, let's stop there, because I can tell you about average, 1 out of 3 are obese, and I can
Yeah,
go
yeah,
on
yeah.
down the list. So your goal should not be to be average. Your goal should be unique to what's unique to you.
Well,
Let average go.
yeah. Average is, my whole life goal is to be average.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. So anyway, I said, well, getting back to this idea about emotional well-being, and by the way, physical well-being is first, because, we've all heard it enough, but if you don't have your health, then you
Yeah,
don't have
nothing.
anything. So that one really does need to be front and center. People got to be taking care of themselves. But again, from a tension management perspective, I don't think the average visitor to YouTube, someone who stumbles across our little thumbnail that says physical well-being, what, I just don't think they're going to click on it. I don't
Mm,
think it's paying attention to tension. It's not meeting them where they are.
mm,
And so what I've come to believe, and this we'll debate it on the today. Actually, we're debating it right now, but we're also going to be debating it on the circle calls. Is this the place we really want to focus in order to attract people to what we want to do, get people interested in the subject matter, get people interested in the community? I believe the answer is no. So, but where do these go then? Well, I said, we already have all of these life areas. We already have activity lists for all of these life areas. Why don't I load all that up onto the membership site as a benefit for people who are, well, they'd probably have to be practitioners to really feel comfortable doing what I'm about to describe, where we could say to people that are practitioners, and all of you guys, I don't care if you join as a practitioner or not, you have to understand that right now, the amount of training that you have gone through, you are a practitioner, if not a master practitioner. So you've already got the most, I'll say most of the education that we would want you to have. I think I could just say to you guys right now, if you go to that list of life areas and you're just thinking about your life as it is at a particular moment in time, and maybe you've got some concerns about legacy. at life area number 22. What are you leaving behind? What impact have you had on life? And this life area is all about making sure that you live your life in a way that it does make a difference, that it does leave your world or the world better off than it was when you arrived. So that's legacy. You should be able to just go to that membership section, click on that, and instantly take that profile. You immediately receive your results. You're looking at your own change grid. You guys know enough to be able to look at your own change grid and say, for the most part, I know what this change grid is telling me, or at least I'm getting some glimpses into what it's telling me. So I don't want to throw all this away, but I just don't think that it has enough productive tension to use it as the word that comes to me, and I don't mean anything negative by this, is bait. I'm trying to attract people so that they can learn what you guys have had the opportunity to learn. And all the, oh, T's joining us, hey T. And so again, just kind of to repeat it, I wanted to take these life areas, let them be available to people who might want to do a deeper dive that don't need to be, what do I want to say, attracted, enticed into doing a change grid based on tension management, but instead come at their life from a place centered on the change grid, at least inside the green circle, and say, I really do want to take a closer look at this or this or this or this, or maybe, just maybe, I'm going to take it upon myself to do one life area every week for my own personal growth, my own personal development, and process our way through that. So what do you guys think? Should we put that stuff in with for people who have already had the training that they need, or is it just something that you think no one's ever going to use?
I think as you just explained that, I don't know that people coming to YouTube would give it the requisite time, because it seems like statistically those people are looking for quick bites of information.
Yep. Yep.
I
And
agree, but it's a bait, don't you think? I mean, I think what you really, I totally agree with what you're saying, but I think what you need to do is find the right bait.
Well, and that's the next little part of my little questions for you guys. So are you with me that I don't want to throw this away? I can put it up online in the membership site so that it is giving people more value, and we're honoring this idea that a wheel of life really does make a difference.
Can I ask real quickly, if you got people to, I think this is I'm in awe of what you've got up here. I think going through one at a time would be amazingly, I think that would be interesting to people.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just getting them there. It's
right.
just,
I think that working your way through these 24, and someone, by the way, suggested a 25. And so I just said, that's a very crammed wheel. But nevertheless, I do think there's great insights and understanding, particularly for people who are well-versed in the concepts of the oracle of the self and the basic concepts of tension management.
you don't think this would be interesting to lay people to?
I think they would be, but I don't think it would work well as a YouTube introductory video, or that bait kind of thing that we're looking for. So
I think you need the bait.
Could they be a podcast? Because people are willing to listen to podcasts, and it could be a bait. I don't want to say bait. That's the only word.
yeah, that's the word we got. I can't think of any other word.
Yeah. And but people like to do podcasts.
Yep.
And I think that using different voices might be good.
Sure. Absolutely. Turn it into conversations about life areas and
right.
And that, or as a panel.
Right.
I mean, put you guys on.
Well, and I think that might be good if we could. You don't want it like this conversation necessarily, where we, you know.
Right. It's got to be more polished, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a thought.
Yep. Well, so let me take it to the next level. What I thought was, let's apply what we know about tension management. We know that people pay attention to where they find their tension. What grabs your attention when you're flowing your way through YouTube is some sort of a thumbnail who either visually or in the words that are included grabs your attention, meets you where your tension is. And so I said, well, then what I need to be doing is not looking at life areas, but looking at life situations
Mhm.
in where that people might find them in. And at the bottom of this little list, you'll see that I've already fleshed out 2 of them. A life situation number 1 would be dealing with difficult people. Number 2, handling arguments. It's got to be something that I think is more situational, where inside of that situation, the people are encountering some friction, some tension, some challenge, some whatever. And
Mhm.
if I can get them involved by focusing on life situations, then I can certainly, obviously we're hoping people want to participate more fully, go through the training or whatever the case may be, in which case they'll learn enough that at a certain point in time, they could go into these life areas and find them well. Someone also suggested we do life areas as a weekend retreat. And I think it's too much to cover in a weekend, but nevertheless, you could do it in bits and pieces. So I
That's
decided
good.
that for the life situations, I want to know what's going on. And so I thought, well, I'm a pretty calm person. So what causes me tension? And when I think about just my life, as calm as I think it is, there are plenty of difficult people that we have to deal with. And even I have tension around that area, and handling arguments, even I have tension around that area. So I thought, like, well, let me at least craft those 2 and then run them by you guys. And you can tell me if I'm on the right track for what I want the Oracle of the Self students, the free students, community members, to experience. And so what I did was I pulled out everything from the archives I've ever done on the subject of dealing with difficult people. And I compiled it all together, sorted it all out, removed some redundancies, and tried to create from it a few things that I think you guys would find useful. And so what I'm going to do right now is chat over to all of you the document that I created on the subject of dealing with difficult people. And we can talk about all the different ways we could use the material that is inside of this document. But I just wanted you to see that for each of these life situations, this is what I've sketched out for everyone. And so this particular document is 17 pages long. So it's fine to let people read it or whatever. It's too much to read aloud or whatever. So dealing with difficult people, I'll just set the stage, you guys can see. Dealing with difficult people is a life situation that would typically fall under the following life areas: social relationships, interpersonal communication, personal growth. And I said it can apply to other life areas. These are the 3 primary. So I think it's important that as we look at a life situation, that we know, where does it fit in? Is it a separate life area that we simply haven't named? Or is it, no, it's a situation that we might encounter under many different life areas, in which case it's going to lead to, the situation should lead to a skill set to help
Mhm.
you better manage it. You guys with me on the shape of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm giving you this document. This document I consider to be mine for my personal reference. I don't think I would ever just hand this to a member of the general public, but pieces of it they would get. So I came up with a description. Dealing with difficult people is a common life situation where individuals encounter challenging personalities, conflicts, or difficult interactions in various aspects of life, such as work, family, or social settings. Because when I first did this, my focus was dealing with difficult people at work. Okay, because we were doing corporate training. So it was always situated. And I would say to my corporate audience, now you can take everything you're learning here today about how to deal with difficult people in the workplace and take it home with you, because it's difficult people there too. You get the idea where I was kind of fitting it all in? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then I said, well, what mission critical activity list did I use for these kinds of pre-training self-assessments? One thing that is a standard part of every training program I've ever done is that before that training program occurs, I create a ChangeWorks profile and have it administered to every single student that's going to come to that program. It helps me with customization. It helps me know where there things they're upgrade about. So I might have to provide more education, or they're too far downgrade about, which means I need to sprinkle some upgrade maneuvers to get them more engaged and back on, track, mission, purpose, whatever. And so I put together rather robust activity lists. And when you're in a corporate setting like that, you can give people a dozen and a half activities, and they will, fill the change grid out. And so I came up with a list of 18 mission critical activities to use for that standard pre-training skill self-assessment survey. And that's what they do. So setting clear boundaries in my interactions, maintaining calm during challenging situations, stop allowing consistent boundary violations, validating the emotions of others, even if I don't agree with their perspective. So these are all end up being very highly plottable activities for a change grid. So far, so good.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
And
interesting to me that these 18 here are, I call it a mirror effect whenever I'm dealing with difficult people, because the common variable, whether I'm at work, the community, seeing a patient or whatever, common variable is me.
yeah.
And whatever biases, whatever mental blueprint is in charge there. And I see these 18 are addressing those. So it's,
That's
in
what
other
we're
words,
trying to.
it's that internal locus control, not the external.
Well, exactly. That's where it has to begin, because we want our students, when it comes to learning how to better deal with difficult people, is that dealing with difficult people begins with you.
Yep.
So, where do you fit into to the challenge as far as your emotions, biases, emotional triggers? Have you determined whether or not that interaction, dealing with it, is even worth your time and energy? Or are you just so far upgraded that from a reactive place, you're just jumping in there and dealing with a difficult person, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, later on in this, we also want to talk about, well, what do you do when you realize that you're the difficult person? You know, so look in the mirror, everybody. And so we have this list of activities. Now, again, for our purposes, for what I've described, YouTube, the oracle of the self, getting people involved in the community, 18 is probably too many activities to present them with all at once. And with each one of these explorations of the week, there's also a debrief of the week, which is a webinar where we go through and we talk about the results. Now, I can't talk about the results for 18 in an hour or an hour and a half long debrief session. I couldn't even do 12 and do all 12 of them justice. So what we'd end up doing is finding out which of these activities showed themselves to be most problematic or were most noteworthy because of how people happened to be plotting. Try to find something where the plotting for the group was more upgrid, so we can talk about how to deal with upgrade issues in general. Maybe there's something that's outgrid, talk about that in general. Stuff downgrid, where we can talk about raising the bar, a little bit of upgrade kind of stuff. And so we figured we would only be able, in that hour and a half debrief, to talk about 3, maybe 4 of the most problematic activities. But mind you, as we're saying this to them, I'm also saying to people who, again, are probably brand new to the ChangeWorks, don't worry about the rest of them, because as you participate in this program week by week by week, you are going to learn more and more and more about what the change grid is showing you, which is equipping you kind of just incidentally to be able to look at your own change grid, look at those other activities that we're not putting a spotlight on during the debrief. And you can certainly then, look at them again and understand what's going on for yourself a little bit more, so a little bit of osmotic learning or whatever. You get the idea. So we can also say to them that if they want to learn more about their results, well, then join the community and take the training. So, become a practitioner or become a master practitioner, or And this is for all of you that are already certified and looking for clients or whatever. You could say, or you could always talk to a certified ChangeWorks coach and let them do a one-on-one private reading for you. And so I think that giving them a rather robust list is good, but I think 18 would be a bit overwhelming. It takes about 1 minute per activity to fill out a change grid thoughtfully. Maybe if you're good at it, you could do a little bit faster, but I don't want them to spend more than 10 minutes filling out that profile. Once they become part of the community and they have more experience with more change grids, you can say, look, do all 18 because all 18 of them are in play. So here's the whole list. Feel free, knock yourself out. But when it comes for things that are a little bit more on that, give them a taste of things, I think we need to keep the list a bit shorter. What are your guys' thoughts about the lists and what I've said there about how we might integrate it?
I like it. Do you have more life areas?
Do I have more life situations?
Yes.
I have finished 150 of them.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
wow.
So we have 3 years worth of activities we can go through, but I need to make sure I'm doing it right because, you only have one chance to make a first impression. Technically, that's not true. We did a program on customer experience management, and that program talks about the 21 first impressions you make with a client or a customer. So anyway, we'll talk about that at some other point perhaps. But I want to get people pulled in, but I got to pay attention to where their tension is. Dealing with difficult people is what we would refer to in the training world as an evergreen topic. So an evergreen topic is a topic that has always been important, is important today, and will always be important. And so even if people come along a year from now where there's 52 of these different explorations of the week that have been completed, they could still go back to any one of them. And because the link to the profile is provided, they can fill it out for themselves right then and there and immediately receive their results. And then they can listen to the videos of the debrief, because that's all up on YouTube or would all be up on YouTube as well, and look at their own grid while we're giving them the insights. And so to me, it's kind of like a perpetual educational sort of an engine that we want to make sure is left behind when we're long gone. Does
Right.
that make sense? Or you see how that all fits in? Thoughts?
Yeah, I like that it unpacks what's underneath the label. So in other words, behavior, a lot of times we talk about it, but then people see that label, but what they're really dealing with are intangibles, kind of like the iceberg effect. 90% of its mass is underneath the surface.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's why people get to hide behind inadequacies and, their work and these kinds of things. Like
Right.
I wrote a journal entry just the other day dealing with people who are suffering from stress, like what I pick up from them. And I said, the journal entry is work too much, live too little. And so this idea that, again, work is superseding everything, and that's kind of what I was picking up from them. That's their training,
Yeah.
go to school, get a good education, get a good job. But then they're suffering, their life is suffering, like all the other areas, and it's taking them away from these things that they so-called enjoy. And so
Yeah.
they never really deal with what's underneath that. What is the mental model that's driving your choices and decisions? What kind of feedback loops are you creating
Yep.
to look at what outcomes you're getting?
Right.
And
And
that's a
ultimately,
practice.
yeah, well, and that's the essence of the oracle of the self. What conversations are you having with yourself and what meaning do you take away from those conversations? And what conversations could you or should you be having with yourself? And how does that all fit in? So we just need to give people something to think about, something to focus on for the week. And so if I could have people just focus for 1 week on the life situation of dealing with difficult people. First of all, how many of you recognize that that's not enough time to really master any of this? It's still getting you thinking, because next week we're moving on to a different topic. You could take a whole semester's worth of a college program on learning how to deal with difficult people. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Okay, let me scroll through the rest of this so you see what the other 16 pages include. So we have our mission critical activities. Well, then I always like to write an article to set the stage. And by writing the article first, and they almost always ended up being the size of a white paper. So too long to be a simple sit down and read an article kind of a thing, but really something robust. So I would write it as an article, but it ultimately ended up becoming kind of like the structure for the training program that should accompany this. And so what you're going to see in these next 15 pages or so is something that could serve as a very robust article, but it could also be a very good structure for any kind of ongoing education, etc. So dealing with difficult people, and you'll find all of mine pretty much
Oh,
the same structure. So here's the introduction. So, it's just there to have some content. You guys can read it at your leisure if you want. But why do people have difficulties dealing with difficult people? Why is that an issue that people have tension about to begin with? And so I like to start there, meet people where they are, or thinking about these people that are watching this YouTube video. In fact, I know I'm babbling or I'm talking really fast, but when I introduce a new subject for the week, exploration for the week, I need to give people a little bit of story, a little bit of backstory. I got to set the stage for why it's important for them to fill out this profile, why this is an important area. And I think talking a little bit in that little section, it can't be more than a few minutes of recorded copy, but nevertheless, understanding the why is important. So let me just walk through this with you guys, and you tell me whether or not you personally have this as an issue for you when it comes to effectiveness at dealing with other people, or even a willingness to do it. So why is it? Number one, past traumas. So people who have been dealt with by people who are aggressive or whatever, this is coming from past trauma. So it can make them prone to lash out, put up walls. And so rather than dealing with difficult people, they just become a counter difficult person. And it becomes very ballistic very quickly. So as a result, that they don't want to do it. Maybe they have some insecurities, a lack of emotional intelligence, environmental factors like the way they were raised. They were raised in a hostile environment, then they might very well see aggressive interactions as a normal thing. Maybe they've got some mental health challenges. Maybe they're afraid of showing themselves to be vulnerable. Maybe they've got some needs that simply haven't been met. So when you think about, I'm about to deal with a difficult person, what is it that's making them difficult? Why are they difficult? And this gives you some idea about that. Now, why do we put that in there? Because I think that the more we understand about the person we're working with, or thinking we need to deal with, the better equipped we are to stay centered on the change grid, stay detached, because we understand what's going on with them more than they probably understand themselves. Does that make sense?
It does. I wish it were so easy.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It's not.
no, it's not. And by the way, if you go back to the activity list, number 2 says evaluating whether interactions with difficult people are worth my time and energy.
Yeah, so mine is like environmental.
Yep.
The way I was raised, if you didn't speak up, you just weren't heard. But then you deal, these hierarchical kinds of cultures and environments like healthcare that I don't do well in.
Yeah.
Because I'm too creative of a thinker, but I just think some stuff is just sheer nonsense. And so I
Yeah.
don't mind
Environmental
telling people where
factors.
to go.
Yeah. But keep in mind, this list of descriptors are about the person who's being difficult. I do think a lot of them are going to reappear further down in the article where it talks about why you might be hesitant to approach somebody or to deal with them. So anyway, that's where
Yeah,
that.
see, the environmental plays a role in that because it plays a role in behavior. So, like, take a hierarchical culture like healthcare,
Yep.
where physicians are over nurses, or at least perceptually,
Yep.
that kind of thing.
Yep.
And so that gives them this kind of uh, pretense of power, but they don't have power over anything.
Right. Well, and again, giving you guys a little background, why this is in the program is because I would often be hired, as many of you are, to work with leaders in an organization who are having problems getting along with other people in the organization. So they're viewed as being abrasive, aggressive, difficult. And so these are subjects we might need to explore with that difficult person to help them become less difficult or more aware and ultimately less difficult. So this again could be the structure for a coaching interaction. It could be a standalone topic, whatever it is. But I just put it on here because I think people, if you really want to understand the subject, need to spend some time thinking about what makes difficult people difficult. So then we go to, well, why is bothering this even, why is it important? Why mastering the art of dealing with difficult people is vital? And so this is really more about the people who've decided to deal with difficult people. Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? And what do you need to be focused on? Are you doing it because it's just personal growth for you? Is it because of you're trying to make the relationships better? What are you doing? Is you trying to create community and social harmony, trying to get prepared for the unexpected? You know, what's the reasons why you should even bother doing it? What's in it for you? Okay, so yeah. Now, then from there, I always like to say to audiences, particularly in corporate settings, don't you think for one little moment that this is an isolated incident that really doesn't need to be focused on because, you know, it's how often is it going to occur? Usually it's the difficult person who's saying that, but it's because of how ubiquitous difficult people are in our lives. So I want to talk about where do all these people, where do we encounter the need to deal with difficult people? So everyday interactions, you're constantly dealing with people just out there that are difficult in the moment. Social media isn't helping it. You get to your own personal relationships and other groups you might belong to. There's going to be difficulty there. And then I threw in here the domino effect. The domino effect just says that if we are dealing with multiple difficult people or multiple difficult situations at the same time, they have a very cumulative effect. They build on one another, and that moves people further upgrid, maybe further outgrid, but generally further upgrid, where they're going to become increasingly reactive, and that's going to move them even further away from logic and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so now, by this stage if I was doing a program and this was the outline for the program, I'd be saying to people, so I don't want you to think about like, well, then I'm just going to be quiet and step aside. No, there are ramifications of leaving the situation unresolved. And so if we don't deal with difficult people, what do we end up with? And I want people to understand it's going to affect you personally. It's going to affect other people as well. So there's emotional strain, physical manifestations. It's going to hurt your brain, cognitive impact. You might withdraw. You're not growing. It can actually compromise your immune system. There's all sorts of reasons that leaving situations with difficult people unresolved is going to end up taking a toll on you. You guys with me so far? Is this interesting?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to ask T, like, do you do exercises or will there be exercises so that the context and how they're experiencing it?
As he continues to scroll, what might we encounter? I mean, it is a program, so I can't spend, if let's say it's a full day program, you can't spend more than the first half hour, maybe hour if it's a lot of material or fascinating enough, setting the stage for the day. The day is about acquiring and practicing skills. And so ultimately, we need to get through this. And maybe I would give people this article as something to read in advance, whatever. But anyway, so the next thing I said was, well, it's great for you to understand that the world in general is going to suffer from these ramifications. But I want you to notice whether or not you are dealing with it. So what are the early warning signs that you are in a situation with a difficult person or a difficult situation that needs to be addressed? So again, this is about making sure you stay inside the green circle. Because if you let those difficult people situations linger, what's the likelihood that you're going to find yourself between the green and the red circles, and now you're forced to live life? So it's like you got to deal with it sooner or later. So what are your early warning signs? And this is where you guys can kind of pause for a moment and think about any kind of a difficult situation. Brian, we know that has to do with the colleagues that you're working with and all that, but everybody just think about a difficult situation or a difficult person and tell me whether or not you are experiencing any of these early warning signs.
Oh my God, pre-encounter anxiety.
There you
Ouch.
go. Pre-encounter anxiety is a big, 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 because you know that I forget where this line comes from, but the line is that a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a hero only once.
Mm.
And it's
Yes.
because people who are dreading doing something are living the worst case scenario in their mind over and over and over again. And even though it's an imagined situation, we know that your brain is not all that able to distinguish between something that is real and something that is vividly imagined. And so this pre-encounter anxiety is killing you over and over and over again. This rehash or review or preview going on over and over is in all likelihood far worse than the actual dealing with a difficult situation is likely to be.
Yes.
So, yep, patterns of tension.
Emotional exhaustion. That's mine.
Right. And this one about pattern of tension is you go like, this person is this way all the time. We're always at odds with one another, on and on. Well, you need to really understand that. So otherwise, you're going to left feeling like you're walking on eggshells. So that is a clear indicator that there's an unresolved issue in play. Maybe you're feeling just emotionally exhausted by that whole situation, or always frustrated because when you've tried to deal with them in the past, things have been misunderstood or unheard or devalued or whatever. All right. And so how many of you think that in an audience, or again, because we want to be talking a little bit to the general public for our YouTube purposes, that they can connect with one or more of these early warning signs that they've got some difficult situations. Yeah.
Yes.
So it may just be that this section all by itself is the only thing that I'm going to use for that introductory video. I mean, I suppose I'll still define what it is, you know, the little basic stuff, but the meat of it would be, do you have problems dealing with difficult people? And here's the things to think about. If you feel that this is something, take our free assessment, get your results immediately, and join our community, and you can attend the live debrief.
I think this might be the bait.
I think this might be the bait.
I hate that word, but
No, it is
like,
what
think
it
about
is.
the pharmaceutical companies, right? They say if you have, or if you're experiencing this and this and this and this, you may have restless leg syndrome. People are like, okay, well, what the hell is this?
Right. I've
And
never
so it
noticed
piques
before.
their
Yeah.
curiosity because they align themselves with whatever those symptoms are.
Yeah. Well, the truth, Brian, is that we might not like the word bait, but it probably is the most accurate.
Absolutely.
We got to do what we got to do, you know.
Exactly.
You got to wet their whistle.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be negative. I mean, why do you think they
better than that?
Well, right. Why do you think they pass out samples at the grocery store?
Exactly. It's a bait.
I mean, yeah, it's a form of literal. It's bait. And you're a fish. So, all right. So we want empowerment. So why is it worth your while to really become more of a master of dealing with difficult people? And so, you know, what is it that you really need to do so that you can hold your own, stay nice and centered and all that? Well, here are some of the advice points. So to your point, Brian, each one of these lends itself to an exercise we can do in a classroom setting. So certainly active listening and delivering neutral responses, seeking to understand, not to judge. These are things that are very skill-based, very exercisable, if you will. And then we give people a little bit of here's a step-by-step guide to dealing with difficult people. So do these things in this order. And at a certain point, it becomes a little bit of best practice sort of stuff. But nevertheless, it has enough of a procedural element that you can get ready for it, do it, and then debrief it and get yourself back on track with self-care at the end of it. So, all right. And then we want to recap. So what are the benefits? Here it is. You do this, you get all these great little benefits, blah, 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 blah. And then we said, all right, great. Now that everyone feels like the show should come to an end, we say, one last thing. What are the signs that you might be the one that's a difficult person?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Ah, the mirror reflection. Sometimes the challenge lies within.
Not me.
Yeah, not me. Recognizing and addressing our own difficult behaviors is crucial for personal growth and maintaining healthy relationships. Here's a breakdown of this scenario. So you might be a difficult person if you
Yeah.
find yourself constantly in conflicts. If you receive feedback from other people, even made in a joking sort of way, that you're always taking this position, that position, whatever. You got to take feedback seriously. Hey, well, that's the remedy. You often feel misunderstood. Well, there's a possibility that maybe the reason why you're misunderstood is because you're just a fool. You're wrong altogether. They don't misunderstand you. They just believe
Ouch.
that nothing that you're saying is understandable. You're just spewing a bunch of nonsense. So, oh no, we understand you perfectly. You're a nitwit. So, so you just got to ask yourself that if people constantly don't understand me, maybe it's a hint that I'm not effectively communicating or understanding. It has everything to do with packaging information. So, all the joke aside, this is an indicator that maybe you're beginning in the middle of the story or talking about something too late. You're not meeting them where they are. And the other thing is that if you find yourself, it says lack of close relationships, but the joke I made in front of my audiences was that assuming you want to have any. So I'm not saying everyone should have as many close relationships as they can possibly create. Some of us are far more private. Some of us are more of an introvert anyway. So we want to have just the right amount of close relationships and just the right amount of closeness. But if you're constantly in conflict and people are telling you you're tough to deal with and you don't feel like people understand you and you've got a lack of close relationships, you need to ask yourself, what is my role in this? And let me work on me before I bother working on them. And so, Brian, I made a big joke out of often feeling misunderstood because, as you've shared with us, your colleagues and how their position on things, we can hear your frustration that they don't get you. They don't get what you're saying, and it may very well be that your assessment of them is correct, but the advice here would be that you examine, is it that you're not packaging things in a way that they can receive? Is it really more about your communication skills than it is about them being nitwits?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of both, actually, because the feedback that I get, and I hear it often, is this guy's intense.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
it's
That's
coming at
feedback.
them a little bit hard.
Yeah.
And so that's why, and I don't mind the mirror experience. And I know that if I'm going to that's why I like these kinds of things. If I'm going to make a difference, which is my overarching purpose, then I have to package it differently that meets
Yep.
it where they are. And I don't mind putting myself in
Well,
that
and
position.
look at this. So these are the steps to take if you're the difficult person. So here's a whole bunch: self-awareness, seeking feedback, self-reflecting, getting communication skills, apologize and amend, seek professional help, personal goals, practice patience. We want to give people always some way to deal with things. Mind you, if we have a client who's a difficult person or has been identified as a difficult person and they've been assigned to go through coaching with us, this is the stuff we're going to help them to work on. So yeah. And so the next step is take a closer look at yourself, take our ChangeWorks profile. Now,
Could I just stop for a second?
sure.
Okay, just go back up to those self-help things. One thing you don't have in there that I might recommend is to ask yourself a different question when you approach people. Because again, if you want to change something, you have to change the question and reflect on the question.
Right.
I might
Yeah,
just
I would.
recommend that.
Yeah, I may very
sort of-
well go ahead and insert that in here. That's really good. Thank you, T.
Sure.
Can you expand on that a minute, T?
Sure. Mary Lee Goldberg Adams is a psychologist who has been working on inquiry, the whole art of asking questions. And she has several good books. One of them is Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. And this is her kind of formula. Questions lead to decisions, lead to actions, lead to results. If you want to change the result, you must change the initial question, either to yourself or consider what are the questions others are asking themselves, and have that whole conversation around that, because reframing and getting people to see it in a different way opens up new windows and new doors and new ahas.
Interesting.
Excellent.
Like it.
Excellent. Okay, we're already at 5 minutes after, so let me just quickly show you guys what these final pages are. But we say, you know, you need to take a closer look at yourself. So what's your next step? We want them to take the profile, but these are some other things they can do for self growth and awareness. And then that's the end of the article. But then what I like to do is have a summary of the article, because my clients might want to use something like this to you know, set the stage for people who are going to be coming to the training program. I also thought maybe this is something that I could use as the narration for that setting the stage sort of video, because it's just, you know, the points and a little paragraph, but it's just a summary of what it is that's going on in that article. And then the last thing that's on here, if I'm not mistaken, is when we made that mission critical activity list, we extracted 18 of them out of a whole lot. And one thing I always want to give our professionals is a comprehensive list of activities. By no means is it completely exhaustive, but there's a lot of activities that have come up and that people can kind of choose from. By the way, if you see these ones that say start, you don't need to use that verb. Just start with the word itself, engaging in self-care, evaluating, but you do have to use stop engaging in this, stop engaging in this. I don't think you need to use continue either. You could just start with validating, choosing, practicing, celebrating, whatever it is. Okay, anyway, so did everyone get the copy of this that I sent over? Key, did you get it, or did you join after that happened?
No, I got it.
Okay, good. So I'll be quiet now and ask for some feedback, thoughts about this, what we've done.
I like the idea of not putting in start and continue, because some of these might be continuing seeking feedback instead of just starting. So that's a really good idea not to do that, because, you know,
yeah, we don't need to put the boundaries around it unless that's important to the project, but otherwise, yeah. But I don't know where this whole thing came from. Oh, I know where it came from. One of the exercises that I train the professionals to do when it comes to compiling an activity list is, what should people start doing, stop doing, and continue doing?
Yeah.
If you flesh that all out, you'll have a nice, robust list, but you don't need to use the word start, stop, and continue. Just jump into the verb and be done with it. That's what makes it mission critical. And then these were the ones we used in the profile. There might be some overlap, but this is in case you wanted to create a deeper dive